Oh yeah. Looks like it's cracked right here at this little seam. So let's take off this heat shield and I'll show you what that looks like up close. Hey, what's up YouTube? Dan the Fix-It Man. Got another quick video here for you. This is a 2005 Toyota Matrix, and we've got a pretty bad exhaust leak back here on the exhaust manifold. Now, I fixed this once before about 10 years ago. I had the exhaust manifold off and we welded it up. There was a crack. It was pretty easy to find. So that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to pull off the exhaust manifold and see if that crack has opened back up, or if it's cracked in another location, or if we have an issue with the exhaust manifold gasket. Either way, the manifold's got to come out. So let's get right to it. First thing I'm going to do is take out these bolts that hold this heat shield over the manifold so that we can get to those manifold bolts. These are all 12 millimeter. Now I'm just going to disconnect the oxygen sensor right here. Just push in on that little tab and wiggle that out. Now we should be able to get this heat shield off. Just going to kind of feed the oxygen sensor connector through there. Set that out of the way. All right, now I'm using my phone down here to get a better visual. Now it looks like the weld is cracked. I can't tell 100%. Now I won't be able to see what's on the other side until I get this out. So I'm just gonna loosen these two lower bolts from below, and then we'll take out the bolts that hold the exhaust manifold to the engine, and then we should be able to take this out, no problem. All right, now I'm gonna try to break this one loose here. This is a 14 millimeter socket. I'm just using the Milwaukee mid torque here with an extension. All right, now the manifold is also mounted below here, and that's a little bit of a support. We just need to take out this bolt right here. That's a 14 millimeter socket. I'm gonna see if I can break that loose with this ratchet. Okay, so we're loose from the exhaust down below. All right, now we just need to take off these 5 nuts that hold the manifold to the head, and those are all a 12 millimeter. Just using a deep socket here. This is also the nut grip from Koken. Now here I am using 1/4 inch. I usually use 3/8, but I got a lot of this really nice 1/4 inch stuff. This ratchet is from Astro, but that's just what I'm using to break these all loose, because it's longer, and then I'm going to switch it up back to the Koken ratchet. And we'll just zip those off real quick. We'll just use this little Koken 1/4 inch flex head. Super smooth, almost no back drag, which I love. And take a look at that with the nut grip. It prevents you from dropping those nuts, which is pretty awesome. There we go. All right, now we should just be able to pull the manifold away. There we go. We'll just carefully lift that up and out. Okay, I probably should have taken the oxygen sensor out, would have had a little bit more room. Now I just have this old boogie board up on the engine. That's what I was laying on to make this a little bit easier. But it looks like my weld from 10 years ago is actually holding up okay. But it looks like we might have a new crack right here on this little joint. I'm going to pull off this heat shield on the bottom to take a closer look. I should also mention that I should have taken off this oxygen sensor, and it would have been a lot easier to get that out. But let's flip this over real quick. I'm going to take out these 4 bolts that hold the underside of this heat shield on there. Okay, so here is the crack. It's right next to this little seam. This is my previous weld from about, what, 10 years ago? It's almost like where the two different tubes change diameter and where they're connected at the factory. This is the weld that I did last time. I know it's a horrible looking weld, but it looks like it held up okay. But we've got a new crack 10 years later right here. I think it just has to do with this design, you know, the weight or the pressure of that exhaust. You know, even with this mount, it still just manages to crack here over the years. I know this is a pretty common problem on these Corollas. This is an 05 Matrix, but it's the same engine. Pontiac Vibe, Corolla, Matrix, they're all the same. It's just the design. There's just a lot of stress on there. But I'm gonna go ahead and weld this up, and let's take a look at the exhaust manifold gasket too. Make sure that's in good shape and that we didn't have any other leaks or anything. And this side looks okay. There we do have a leak right here. You can see where it's really dark or really black, some carbon coming through there. So we're gonna go ahead and put a new gasket on before we put this back together. We'll go pick that up at the parts store. In the meantime, I'll go ahead and weld this up and see if we can get a little bit more life out of this one. Now, as I mentioned, I probably would have taken this oxygen sensor off ahead of time if I would have realized that we didn't have a lot of room there, but I'm gonna try to pull it off now. I've got this little oxygen sensor socket. Just gonna see if I can get that loose. It's kind of hard with it not on the vehicle. Okay, we got it. Usually, once you break these loose, they'll come right off. Just take it out the rest of the way. Now, I also didn't want to risk damaging this while welding this up, so let's just set this aside and we'll put that back in once we get it welded up and back in the vehicle. Well, I'm no welder or anything like that, but at least that crack is closed up and looks like this is gonna work. All right, well, here's the replacement exhaust manifold gasket we got here from Felpro MS93909. Looks a little bit different as far as the material, but I like Felpro gaskets. They usually hold up really well. So let's get that opened up, put that in. I'm gonna put the lower heat shield back on this, and then we'll put it back in the car. And we'll just pop that gasket on. And let's just put that lower heat shield back on. Just making these all snug. I'm not sure what the torque spec might be for the heat shield, but we don't need to overdo that. All right, and I'm gonna leave the oxygen sensor off until I get this installed, and then we'll thread that back in and hook everything up. And that's definitely a lot easier without the oxygen sensor, but you still gotta kind of twist it around a little bit. I didn't really mention it, but you're gonna wanna also take a look at the donut, the tapered gasket that goes down below, and ours looked like it was in good shape, so we're reusing that. And we'll just kind of lower that down and just try to line up those bolts. And there we go. I'm gonna start with all of these nuts, just get them on one at a time. Now I'm just getting all of these snug first, and then I'm gonna come back and get these all torqued to 27 foot-pounds. I'm gonna start at the middle here. And I'm just gonna work my way from the middle out. There we go. And we'll just put the top heat shield back on, right like that. We'll just get all of these bolts started. All right, now we can put the oxygen sensor back in. Here, we don't want to tangle up the wires here, so just be careful that you do that. Okay, that feels about right. And then we can reconnect the oxygen sensor or air fuel sensor. Looks like this was supposed to be in this little mount right here, and it's kind of popped out, but that's all right. As long as we get it connected, we should be good. Nice little click. And then we'll just set it right there where it goes. Now I could always just grab a zip tie, but this looks good. It's not going to rub on anything or burn on anything. But now let's go down below and I'll put in the 2 longer bolts to connect the exhaust to the manifold along with that mounting bolt, and we should be done. All right, we can put this mounting bolt back in. See if we can get that to line up. Yep, that worked. And then finally, we just need to put in these 2 bolts here that hold the manifold to the exhaust. And it's just these longer bolts with the springs on them. Just go ahead and get those started by hand, and then we'll get those snugged up as well. And we're done. Let's go ahead and start it up and see how it sounds. Just make sure that we don't have any obvious leaks or anything like that. Well, that's all it was, is just that crack in the manifold, and I think our bad exhaust manifold gasket as well. But this is all buttoned back up, and this should definitely be a lot quieter on the road. But more importantly, the owner won't be smelling the exhaust gases in the car. So I hope you liked the video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you don't mind. That does help me out. And of course, I'll get links in the description to some of the parts and tools used in the video as well. Thanks so much for watching, and good luck.